Welcome everyone into another episode of Zoom Action, KSR's basketball film breakdown show. As always, we've got myself, Zack Geoghegan, joined by Brandon Ramsey, our resident Indianapolisian. I'm not sure what you would call yourself, but Brandon's like an hour from Indianapolis. He's going to be there pretty much all weekend, Brandon just informed me that the Indiana State Tournament is going on the same weekend as well. So Indianapolis is going to be crazy. Obviously, if you're watching this now, you understand that Kentucky is in the Sweet 16. They're playing in Indy on Friday night against who else but the Tennessee Volunteers, a team that Kentucky has beaten twice already this season during the regular season. It's been well over a month, though, since the last game. I believe the last one was February 11th when they played each other. So we're looking at 6, 7 weeks ago now at this point. But Kentucky had Tennessee's number both those games. So we're going to just kind of step back into the film room of both those games. Brandon and I, we split up the responsibilities here. I took the road game in Knoxville. He took the home game in Lexington. We picked two different clips from each, just not with any, rhyme or reason, just kind of all right, this is, these were interesting things that we think can, maybe play over into the game on Friday night in the Sweet 16. But we're going to start with the game in Knoxville. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up right here. So let's set the stage a little bit because Kentucky's roster then does not look anything like it does right now. And this game, Kentucky has Jackson Robinson. They do not have him anymore. Andrew Carr played not even a minute. He played like 30 seconds in this game. He turned it over one possession, and the next possession got dunked on because his back was pretty much in shambles at this point. So he didn't play that game. Big minutes from Ainsley Almanor, Trent Noah, Travis Perry. Just pretty much an entirely different look from what Kentucky is now used to. You do have Lamont Butler in this game, though, so that is something that that we can kind of carry over as well. But Kentucky is going to have a healthy Andrew Carr. They will have a more than healthy Lamont Butler, so we'll see how that impacts things. But this first play I picked out here, before I ramble on too long, we'll go ahead and dive in, is kind of I think what I called it was like a doubles stagger zoom action. Brandon might have a different word for it or a different phrase for it. His coach, Brandon, what would you call it essentially before we actually dive
I would
into
just
it?
call it a staggered zoom, probably. Yep.
A staggered zoom. So, as we know, the zoom action name of the podcast has been a very big staple of Mark Pope's offense this season. And as we see here, Brandon is loading up this play. So, it's the classic zoom action set we see from Kentucky, but instead of one screener, we see two screeners here. And the reason I pulled this play up here was to kind of give Ainsley Almanor some flowers for that game and maybe point out how he can have another big impact in the game on Friday as well. He curls around both of these two screens here from Jackson and Ortega. Basically gets a third screen from Brandon Garrison on the handoff there. And Brandon does a great job of cutting to the rim. Tennessee's defenders have to stay true to Jackson and Ortega in the corners here. And of course, Kobe Brea as well, right up there on the far corner. And then Ainsley Almanor makes a beautiful pass over top of two defenders for Brandon Garrison for an easy dunk. Again, the reason I pulled up this play was to give Ainsley Almanor a little bit of love because he played so well in those two games against Tennessee. I think he had a combined 25 points, 6 of 10 from three. A lot of that was because Andrew Carr was not playing. So we'll see how much Ainsley kind of plays into this game on Friday. How many minutes does he actually steal away from Andrew Carr? But Brandon, I'll let you go in just a second to kind of break down what your eyes see from this play. But I like this one just because it's not too overly complicated. Honestly, it's more of just a simple set and just a lot of really sound playmaking from a veteran guy like Ainsley Almanor, who clearly is not going to be afraid of playing this Tennessee team. And Brandon Garrison as well, making another smart decision to curl. We all know that he has really good hands. Easy catch and finish for him. So, Brandon, what did you see from this play, and how do you think that maybe it could even translate into what we might see on Friday?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think let's all just use our imagination here and let's sub in Colin Chandler or Trent Noah probably for Jackson Robinson, which skill set wise, especially with the way Colin Chandler's shooting the ball, maybe not all that different just in terms of a raw catch and shoot ability here. But it's really impressive to see your backup four-man, a guy like Ainsley Almanor, come off of a double zoom into a handoff. Like, that's not something that a lot of four men are doing, but with his shooting ability, it's a good action because, he probably could have maybe squeezed that off right there. Tennessee did a pretty good job of jumping out, but Brandon Garrison has great feel on the roll. He's able to get in there. But this is just all about, to me, this play showcases Kentucky's, the pressure they put on the defense with their shooting ability, because you have an elite shooter here in Ainsley Almanor. You have
I
an
believe
elite
he already
shooter
made
here.
2 at this point as well. Ainsley did.
Perfect. Yeah, so you have an elite shooter in Ansley Olminar, an elite shooter in Jackson Robinson. Again, sub that in for Colin Chandler or Trent Noah in this coming game. Then obviously an elite shooter in Kobe Brea. So there's just no like Tennessee tries to help off of Otega Owe here, which is smart, but it's just too little, too late, and you get a dunk from Brandon Garrison. And one of the things I was telling Zack was I really do think that Kentucky's offense and the Cats' strengths offensively line up well with the way that Tennessee plays defensively. Now, we all know that Tennessee is great on the defensive end of the floor, but I think some of the things that they give up really lend themselves to Kentucky finding success. That's why the Cats are 2-0, and quite frankly, that's why I think that there's a real chance that the Cats go 3-0 on Friday.
Bart Torvik, I'm pretty sure that since that Ole Miss loss, Kentucky has a better defense during that span since Tennessee. Kentucky's like 10th or 11th, and I think Tennessee might be 13th or something like that.
I will confirm that for you, Zach. Kentucky is 10th, and Tennessee is 26th defensively
26th. So
since
even
February
worse.
8th.
Yeah, so that's like a third. Go
It's a
ahead.
13 game sample size. I mean,
There you
it's
go.
from right before this game that we're watching right now.
Yeah, so Kentucky's honestly been better on that end than Tennessee. I got to watch Tennessee in person play against UCLA and Wofford. They definitely looked a lot better than they did in these games against Kentucky, but that is a completely different competition level, talent level difference. Like Tennessee was floppy actioning everything, especially against Wofford. Like they had no chance guarding Chaz Lanier. It was kind of embarrassing at some points that they were just going to that over and over again. So it'll be a completely different mindset for Tennessee because they actually shot the ball well against both those teams as well. But again, they've struggled heavily to shoot the ball against Kentucky. And after watching both these games, I don't think a lot of it was luck or anything like that either. I think it was just a really good defensive game plan. They made bad guys shoot threes. The one guy they let keep shooting threes was Milicic. Brandon, do you watch Severance by chance?
I do not. Sorry.
Okay, so you wouldn't understand if Milicic, if every time I hear his name I keep thinking of Mr. Milchick, you wouldn't understand that joke then.
I do not understand that, Zach.
Okay, I hope someone in here does, and someone will understand that one because every time I see his name, I keep thinking of Mr. Milchick from Severance. But regardless, let's go ahead and dive into our second play here. I've pulled up a defensive clip here. This is actually this is a bad defensive play from Kentucky, if we're being honest. This is how not to defend their floppy action. And like I said, they did a lot of floppy action against UCLA and Wofford. Not too much in these two games against Kentucky. Maybe some of it was length. They didn't want Chaz Lanier trying to shoot over a guy like Kobe Brea, because it feels like that's a lot of what the floppy action designed around is to try and get him, good looks from mid-range or maybe from three. But Kobe Brea does a pretty bad job here of defending this. He gets lost behind a screen, goes around the wrong way. And gives Chaz Lanier a wide open look at a three, which he misses. It's one of those things where you don't really expect him to miss that too many times. So if he gets a look like this again, he's probably going to score. So this is like just kind of an example of what not to do. And again, you got Almanor here as well. I probably trust Andrew Carr a little bit better to be in his spot and read this a little bit better on defense. We'll see if Andrew Carr is able to actually, do what Brandon's pointing out there and maybe sprint out to Chaz, put himself in a better position because this is just not good defense from either of these guys here. But Brandon, if you have any other thoughts on this play, I'll let you go ahead because I do think this is something that Tennessee will try and throw at Kentucky early on. Just you have examples here of how it works, and they've been doing it so well so far in this NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you play Tennessee, you're going to be guarding a lot of floppy action, and a lot of it's going to be run for Chaz Lanier, and he's obviously as talented of a shot maker as really anybody in the country, and he can be really good in it. And we've seen Kobe Brea certainly make strides on the defensive end of the floor. Colin Chandler has been excellent in this situation, chasing guys like Chaz Lanier or even Chaz Lanier himself, quite frankly, around. So that's something maybe to watch for more on Friday. But I think that also probably the main difference you see from this clip in this game, which I think was like on February 13th to on Friday, which will be March 28th, is Kentucky is much more willing to switch defensively. And I think that regardless of doing a better job kind of at the point of the screen here, I think that you would see at this point you would get this communicated where Kobe would kind of push Ansley or whoever's in that position out to Lanier. Kobe, as he just runs into the screen, would just take the screener, and then you're at least in a better position to contest that a little bit sooner. I mean, obviously he does miss this one here, but I mean, watch it. It's about as close to
Yeah,
going in
I mean, it goes in twice
as
before it comes out.
as humanly possible. And also, I mean, and this isn't really the point of the clip, but defensive rebounding is huge against Tennessee as well because they're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, and you can't when you're able to get, especially a guy like Chaz Lanier, to miss a three coming off floppy, like you better secure that one because it's not going to happen often. And if you start giving them multiple chances, that's where Tennessee's defense or offense, excuse me, can become good enough is if they're able to get a bunch of second chance points. That's why they're so efficient. Like when you look at the KenPom numbers and you're like, how in the world is Tennessee the 17th best offense in the country or whatever? Like that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's because they get like 35% of their own misses. I mean, it's kind of the same story as Texas A&M to some extent. Like it's not that they're actually good offensively. It's that they just give themselves so many opportunities that eventually blind squirrel finds a nut and the ball goes in the basket. So you really have to do a good job of defensive rebounding in this game.
Yeah, and to that point, that's where I think having Andrew Carr being healthy will be huge because Mr. Milicic, I should say, had 18 rebounds in those 2 games against Kentucky. He was poor Ainsley Almanor was having to box him out. That's just not a good matchup for him. Offensively, it can work in Kentucky's favor, but you much rather have a guy like Andrew Carr getting those box outs and even playing the defense right there on that floppy action, like we just showed. But Chaz Lanier, just kind of to his Brandon's pulling up this his 2 plays here is he's not a guy. Or he's not someone that I think we've seen too much this season go try and get his own shot efficiently. I don't think that's really his game. That's not what he wants to do. So defending these type of floppy action sets or just pin down screens because they'll do a lot of that as well. I think those will be really key in Kentucky's defensive game plan because all you got to he's going to make tough shots. Like he can make a shot with a hand right in his face. But the more that you pressure him and make him work for it, just the worse he'll kind of get over the game. So I do think a lot of that's going to be important and just having personnel, and like you said, this was so when was that Ole Miss game? I'm trying to
Ole Miss was February 8th.
February 8th. So, okay, so this was the play we just watched was 2 games before that Ole Miss game. So this is still when Kentucky's kind of in their bad defensive habits. Kobe Brea, this was before he kind of hit that flip switched for him and his brain of how he needs to play defense. So I think you're going to see a lot of that exact clip we just showed. I think if it happens in a similar setting, it's going to look a lot differently for Kentucky defensively, and hopefully that's a good thing. So, Brandon, let's go ahead and pull up your 2 plays here. We're now shifting back to Rupp Arena. Let's see. This game was, let me pull it up. This was February 11th. So that first game against Tennessee was January 28th. The second one was February 11th. So again, we are over 6 weeks ago from these 2 games. But Brandon, I will let you just kind of run through this play here, and you take us through what you see, what you like, and how it can translate.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to talk about with my 2 clips here is how Kentucky's offense does attack Tennessee's defense pretty well. We know the Volunteers are going to pressure the ball. They're going to force some turnovers. There's going to be times where they take the Cats out of what we want to do offensively. That's why Tennessee is one of the best defenses in college basketball. However, they also give up a ton of threes. They're very aggressive at helping in the gaps. They're going to help with 2 hands and 2 feet. And with the way that Kentucky moves the basketball, with the way they cut, with the way they curl to the basket, with some of their handoff action, they're able to burn off some of that pressure and then really put Tennessee in some precarious situations off of the ball where then Kentucky gets to some pretty high percentage shots. And you're going to see that in both of my clips here. But we're going to start off, take away hits, Brandon Garrison here, and we're just into some off-ball screening action. Garrison turns back to the ball. Now we're into a handoff with Kobe Brea, and he's able to get downhill to the basket. And this is part of Kobe Brea's growth as well. I was just talking about this on a radio show a couple days ago. Kobe Brea has made 8 more 2s this season than he attempted last year at Dayton. That's the growth that he's made offensively. Like, he is a completely different player than he was a year ago. And again, this is just an example of how Kentucky can burn off some of that Tennessee pressure. Obviously, they're going to be all over Kobe Brea trying to chase him around handoffs like this. I mean, you see even how far. I mean, this is 28 plus feet from the basket, and Chaz Lanier's fighting over on his hip here. But now, as a different player, Kobe Brea is able to get in there and finish a tough little floater. Those are the plays that it takes to beat Tennessee, because it's not super easy to change sides of the floor and just kind of whip it around the perimeter. You're going to have to get into some of these tight handoffs and really do a good job of coming off tight and getting downhill in a hurry and scoring the basketball. And I thought Kobe Bryant did a great job of that here. And we certainly, I mean, he was 7 for 8 against Illinois from 2-point range. So, there should never be a time where he has more confidence in being able to make plays like this than coming into this game due to what we just saw him do in Milwaukee.
Mark Pope's approach for this game is to try and get Kobe Bryant easy looks, get him going, get him in spots where he can find his teammates and make easy plays. So that was a good play. I like that one. But Brandon, go ahead and cue up our second play here. It looks like we are right under the under 12 timeout here in the first half.
Yeah, the reason I liked this clip was I had just touched on how Tennessee is pretty aggressive in the gaps. They always help with 2 hands and 2 feet is the way that I like to say it. They're going to really shift in there, then they're going to reach at the ball and try to get a steal, and you really see that in this clip. Again, it's not always the easiest to run a bunch of offense in the scoring area against Tennessee. They're going to be out in the passing lane, some just like right here. They're not even letting you reverse it through Brandon Garrison. He's going to have to really come out here outside of the scoring area to initiate offense. And, they're doing a good job over here as well, pressuring guys. Brandon Garrison doesn't really have anywhere to go, but he gets it out here to Lamont Butler. And I think the ball screening is going to be a big part of this because, again, it's a good way to burn off some pressure. And with having Lamont Butler back in this game and certainly in the one that we're going to watch on Friday, it was really big for Kentucky. And I think what'd you say, Zach? Butler went down with about 8 minutes to go in this game that we're watching currently.
8:30 something in this game is when he goes down and lands on that shoulder and does not return. And pretty much Travis Perry closes out the game for Kentucky.
Yeah. So watch Jemai Meshack here off the ball for Tennessee. I mean, we know what Trent Noah, the Mountain Mamba, what he can do as a shooter. And again, that could easily be Colin Chandler. That could easily be Kobe Bryant, whoever it is. But Tennessee, they're not a team that's going to lock on to those shooters. Again, they're going to help aggressively in the gaps. And you see that here again, 2 hands and 2 feet with the way he's stepping in, even off of a guy like Trent Noah. And look at how easy this little pitch and catch is between Lamont Butler and Trent Noah. And those are those shots that Tennessee really will give you. I'm going to pull up the KenPom here. I mean, over 45% of opponents' field goals come from 3-point range against Tennessee. That's 338th in college basketball. Almost 35% of opponents' points come from beyond the arc. That ranks very high in college basketball. So even as good as the Volunteers are defensively, they're going to make you make threes in order to beat them. And generally speaking, they're excellent at that. Teams only shoot 28.3% from 3 against Tennessee because they're just really good at doing both. So far, knock on wood, Kentucky's been really good at making threes against Tennessee. Will they be able to do that a third time? Obviously, we'll see, but they will have the opportunity to do so. I will almost guarantee you that. Kentucky's going to be able to get up 33s in this game. If they make 10 plus of them, they're going to have a real good chance to win. If they make 7, they're probably going to lose. But I do think that because of the way Tennessee guards, like you see in this clip, Kentucky is going to have the shots in the air to potentially win this game and move on to the Elite Eight. And then it's just going to come down to execution and if you can make enough of them to win the game.
Yeah, a couple of notes on that. Kentucky shot 12 of 24 in both games from 3, 12 of 24 against Tennessee. So if you go 12 of 24 again on Friday night, I think I'm giving Kentucky the win on that one. I don't know how Tennessee would be able to overcome that, especially with how good Kentucky's defense has been. Another note, this is why when people were getting frustrated about extra or the deep rotations and playing 11 guys and more minutes for Noah and Perry and all them, this is why it's paying off right now because Trent Noah went 3 for 4 from 3 in that game that we just showed you. All of those coming in the first half. He was destroying them. Trent Noah had that it was like a broken play rebound against when they were on the road in Knoxville where he finished the layup there. That was a huge momentum shifter for Kentucky. Travis Perry played crazy amounts of minutes. Like I think he played like 28 minutes, and maybe that's the game where Lamont went out in that one. So you've got these guys, and now Colin Chandler obviously is a completely different player than he was in either of these 2 games. It was actually I believe that second Tennessee game, the one in Rupp Arena where Colin Chandler had his first double-digit minute game against an SEC opponent, like against someone who was actually good, not just like a, one of the mid-majors in the non-conference. So that was kind of the beginning of the growth that we've seen from him as well. So you've got a lot of these guys on the bench here, and we'll see what, because Pope was kind of mentioning that Travis Perry's wrist might not be fully healthy. We'll see how much that actually matters when we get into game time on Friday. I don't know how much we'll see out of guys like Perry, Noah, and Chandler. I think we'll definitely see Perry and Noah. I'm not entirely sure, but you have that in your back pocket now. Same with Ainsley Almanor. If Pope wants to confidently go down his bench, I think he can do that because he's seen all three of those guys, Noah, Perry, and Almanor, step up and play really well against Tennessee, both on the road and at home. And this game is going to be, even though it's played in like that basketball stadium, or the football stadium, whatever it is, which
yeah,
not a huge fan of, if I'm being perfectly honest. Brandon, you can tell me what. Okay, good. I'm glad you're on my side with that. You can tell me how it looks. I'm interested to see where your seat is. Like if you can see the other side of the football field from your seat at Lucas Oil when you're there at the games. But yeah, so Kentucky, they're in good shape, I think, going into this one. I believe they're still the underdog, maybe like 4.5, 3.5 points or something like that. Brandon, before we get out of here, because we're actually doing well on time, but just to kind of screw that all up on us, I'm going to ask one more question. I'm not even going to have us do predictions and stuff like that, because I don't want to jinx anything. But just give me maybe a couple of things that you're really looking for Kentucky against Tennessee to pull off the third win. Go 3-0 against one team in one season.
I think that first and foremost, it really is the 3-point shooting. I mean, we've seen it in each of these first two games where the first game against Tennessee, like you said, Kentucky was 12 of 24 both times, so we held that constant. But the first time Tennessee was 11 of 45. Obviously, 11 makes, like if Tennessee makes 11 threes on Friday, it's going to be a problem.
They might win. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I also don't expect them if they shoot 45 of them again, then we'll still be okay. Then,
most of Rick Barnes' era, most of the whole Rick Barnes era was 45.
It was kind of insane. But then they turn around. They only shot 18 the second time, but they only made 3 of them. So, if Kentucky is able to win the 3-point battle again, because they did it both times, 12-11 and then 12-3, if they win the battle there again, it's going to go a long way to winning this basketball game. And then the second area, which I've already touched on a little bit as well, would be the rebounding. I think that, again, the way that Tennessee is able to manufacture enough points to win outside of, getting hot and making 13 threes in this game, the other way would be by them offensive rebounding. I've got the number here.
They won the rebounding battle both games, but not by too much.
And they're 35.5% on the season on the offensive glass. That's going to have to be like 30% or under, I'll go ahead and say, on Friday. So I think if Kentucky can, just be average to above average on the defensive glass, and if Kentucky makes more threes than Tennessee, almost regardless of how many get shot, just win the threes, don't get killed on the glass. And I'm telling you, man, like at the end of this game, Kentucky's going to have a real chance to win it if those two things are true. And we're going to be, playing, the final segment to go to the Elite Eight, which, to think about that with this team and the injury issues and all that kind of stuff. And especially to get to do it against Tennessee, I know it'll sting a little bit extra if you lose to Tennessee, but boy, how sweet will it be if you go to the Elite Eight by beating Tennessee? It's going to be big time.
I think my one main concern for this game is just Chaz Lanier shot the ball so poorly in both those games against Kentucky. I think a lot of it was just good defense from Kentucky, but I do think he missed some ones that I saw him make pretty easily against UCLA and Wofford inside rep. So I think my one main concern is to try and tame him down. I think he had 29 points or something maybe against Wofford. I forget which one, but so he's really in a groove right now. I just don't foresee him going, I think he was 0 for 7 in the second game, maybe 3 for 13 or 3 for 10 in the first game. I just don't foresee him shooting that poorly again, even with how well Kentucky's defense has been. This is why he's here. I think he'll show up and have a good game. So I think that'll be that's something I'm going to monitor. How can they kind of contain him? Because if Mr. Milčić wants to score 20 points, I don't think Kentucky's going to lose that game. Because he was their best player in both those last two games. Part of it because he didn't have, he had Ainsley Almanor guarding him a lot. So he's the guy that I'm fine trying to let beat you. Chaz Lanier, I think, can beat you by himself. So how they defend him will be
49 points, 10 of 18 3-point shooting in the first 2 rounds for Ches Lanier. 49
He
points, 10
was
of 18 for three.
good. And he was, I mean, like I said, a lot of floppy action stuff. And again, I think some of that was just he was going up against, no disrespect from guys from Wofford and UCLA. They're just not as big and tall as strong as like, having Kobe Bray or Ortega Owe or even Colin Chandler chase you around. Like Lanier was able to just rise up and shoot over these guys. It's not going to be the same case, I think, against some of these better defenders that Kentucky has, or at least, the guys have shown the ability to be better defenders lately. So, but before we get out of here, Brandon, any final thoughts, any last things you want to say? I know you've got a post on KSR right now of kind of your guide to Indianapolis. So is there anywhere in particular fans need to definitely go to if they're making the trip up, or any other final Tennessee thoughts you've got before we get out of here?
No final Tennessee thoughts other than, I really do think Kentucky has a good chance to win on Friday. But yeah, I would say this. I mean, yes, I do have a full post on KSR.
Mm.
So go read that about Indianapolis, and I'll have my normal scouting report on Tennessee up as well, the third one of the season. But there's two staples in Indianapolis: Kilroy's stuffed breadsticks, and
Ooh.
then St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail. Those are the two things that you have to do. And there's like 4 or 5 other places that you can get St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail at, so you don't have to force your way into St. Elmo's. But the Kilroy's breadsticks you can only get at Kilroy's. They are on DoorDash, so you can maybe do
Ooh.
it that way if you need to as well. But yeah, those would be my 2 recommendations. But
What
yeah,
are they
that's about all
stuffed
I got.
with, these breadsticks?
So the kind of the plain ones are just stuffed with pepperoni and cheese. So it's almost like
Ooh.
kind of a
Like just,
Bosco stick, but then with
yeah, yeah.
with pepperoni. But then they also have a breadstick of the month. I should have been prepared to know what it is, but like it'll kind of get off the wall. Like it'll be like Philly cheesesteak, or it'll be
Okay.
like, it could be a lot of different stuff. So
Sweet. All right. Well, now everyone knows. Go to Kilroy's, get yourself a stuffed breadstick. Brandon will be there in Indianapolis with the rest of the KSR crew. I will be here in Lexington watching a different Sweet 16, the Kentucky State Tournament. I'm actually about to go watch St. Xavier play Jeffersontown here momentarily, but we will get out of here. We will see you all on the other end. Go Cats, and beat Tennessee.
yeah, let's do it.